It's time for that discussion we promised you earlier with Tamima. Every female indeed has the right to have access to sanitary towels. Tamima, it's very important. It's unfortunate it doesn't always happen, but it's something that we should work towards.
Definitely. And joining me in studio this morning to discuss this topic is Irene Mwati. Good morning, Irene.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Morning Express.
Thank you.
Now, Alion, just as Sophia said, sanitary towels, they are every woman's right. Yet, 2013, modern day Kenyan, what is the situation on the ground?
So thank you for having me. So today the situation is improving. It was much worse several years ago. So for us, for the Always pad, it was created in 1984 and we brought it into Kenya in 1992. And since then, the pad has been available in the market, but it's about 45% of the Kenyan public uses a sanitary pad. So you have about 55% not able to access sanitary protection. So be it on Always, yes, be it Always, be it any other brand. Yeah.
Okay. And generally, what is the perception on menstruation? Because I remember, like, when we were growing up, and I think every woman can attest to this, when you're walking into a supermarket and it's that time of the month and you have to buy it, it's like everyone just cringes.
I know it's unfortunate that this is something that is a normal process. However, it's not yet been embraced. So you find that even today there's a lot of stigma associated with sanitary pads. When you go to buy it, it's put in a newspaper and it's overwrapped and wrapped and wrapped. And even in the kiosks, you find they want to put it at the back. So when if you're a little girl going to the kiosk to look for a sanitary pad, it's sort of hidden. You have to mention and say, I want to buy a sanitary pad.
You have to whisper.
Yes.
So everyone else doesn't hear what you're asking for.
Yes. But you find now there's a lot of the women who are getting into menstruation, and because of all the advertising, and we are talking about it in platforms such as this, the word is going out. In fact, during the music festivals that we had in August, we actually participated in a category where we wanted the girls and the boys to talk about menstruation. So it was very interesting to see how in the little girls' minds and the boys, how they perceive it. And you find they want to use a lot of symbolism where instead of talking about menstruation, they talk about it's raining, that time of the month. So no one actually wants to hit the nail on the head. So you find even in 2013 in the music festivals, yes, there are people who will talk about it, but they'll talk about it in a hidden way. So the situation is it's still a lot of stigma. We have a long way to go, and we want to talk to women and girls about this thing so that they can be able to come out. And one of the ways we are doing this as a brand is we are going to schools and we are talking to girls about menstruation, not just menstruation, about puberty, because we want you to embrace your womanhood, because you're moving from being a girl to a woman. So it's supposed to be a good time. But I think because of our our past and our ancestors, where when you start menstruation, maybe you were married off, so we still have that baggage. So somehow when you start menstruation, you don't know who to talk to. So we find that sometimes the girls begin menstruation and they think they're sick, they stop going to school, and we have research like from far away where you find at that time of the month the grades drop. Because a girl who was always number one, when she was in class 1, class 2, class 3, then you find something happens when she's in class 5, 6, 7, and she drops. She's not as social, she's skipping school, and that's not good.
And that has to do with adolescence and of course a whole boatload of issues that come with that as well.
Exactly.
Now, just to take you back a bit, still on perception, right? It's interesting that we're seated here on national TV talking about sanitary towels and the fact that it's every woman's health right. And you touched on how the teenage girls and the teenage boys perceive sanitary towels. What about men and women?
Well, now the men and the women, it depends on the age. So you find the older, maybe it's people above 50 years, a bit more even, they don't want to talk about it at all. So if it's a dad taking the daughter for shopping, it's almost like, go and, run in the aisle by yourself, go and do that thing. Or even some will just want to give you the money for you to go and do it. Now, the ages of maybe over 20, 30, 40 years old, they're a bit more sensitized. Yeah. So as I said, the program that I was talking about, we started it about 20 years ago. So probably the people who were in school, in primary school in the last 20 years, they have been taught about that. So that generation is in a much better place than the previous generation. However, people are still shy. That's the reality of it.
Okay, and you know that unfortunately it's a fact that not every woman in Kenya can afford sanitary towels, right? So what is the impact on these women? You mentioned earlier the teenage girls. It does influence their grades, and we know it's just one of the few problems that come along with the fact that a woman is on her menses and she can't afford a pad.
Yes. So so the problem is there, as I said. So there's this whole bunch of people who are not able to afford or access sanitary pads. So when it's a girl who is beginning her menstruation, she stops going to school. So we have research that says that girls miss 4 to 5 days of school, meaning that now they lag behind their boy counterpart, and also it affects their grades. So right now we're about to sit for KCPE. So you can imagine if those 4 to 5 days are when you're menstruating and then you're doing your exams, you're really in a much disadvantaged position over the boy counterpart.
Because the concentration is off.
Yes.
There are also confidence issues. That's when you find girls walk around tying
the
sweaters around their waists.
Exactly.
You know?
And you find, like in our system, where the girl is told, come to the blackboard, do some sums on the board, and
so
she doesn't want to move.
Being very withdrawn.
Exactly.
So the teacher wonders, this girl is very antisocial, but there are a lot of emotional and hormonal issues that she's going through.
Exactly. So you find this girl is not going to be able to participate. And then what is the effect? Now, if you do not pass your grades, you perform poorly in class 8, you don't get to go to high school. So the effects are really rippling. So this same girl, the research shows us that when you educate a girl, she's more likely to educate her own siblings, her children. Also, when you educate a girl, she's more likely to immunize her baby. The infant mortality deaths of people who have educated the girls are much, much lower. So if she's not educated, then you find she will not possibly educate her child. She's going to get married early. So the effects are really, really rippling and to the whole society. So there's a lot of issues when the girl doesn't get access to sanitary pads.
And I know you're part of a wonderful campaign that aims to ensure that every woman in Kenya actually does have access to sanitary towels.
Yes.
And you're going to be letting us all know how we can be part of this wonderful movement. But before that, I believe that we need to give every woman who's watching a refresher course on sanitary hygiene. We assume so much.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And I think a woman, an average woman, a normal woman actually menstruates for, is it 35 years on average?
Yes.
Right?
So,
and yet you'll find that it's one of those things that's very taboo. So you know what you know. But very few women have the privilege of sitting in those classes that you mentioned, where you're taught and also you sit in classes with the boys so they can understand this is biology.
Yes.
It's not something which is
it's a
hush,
Yeah.
So just to start on that, what are some of the common mistakes that women make when they're using sanitary towels?
Okay, so one of the common mistakes that girls, let me say, the younger girls make is actually before. So the mistake that's before. So they're not able to calculate when do I expect my period. So if you think that your period will come, if it comes on the 27th of the month, it will come on the 27th of the next month. So you find. So it means that it will come and get you off guard. You won't have carried your sanitary pad, and then your day will be messed, and you probably have to go home if you're a girl who, leave work. So that one of the first things you have to know is, when do your periods come? So there are 3 different cycles. So there's a long cycle, there's a medium cycle, and there's a short cycle. So if you're in the long cycle, it means that your periods come between 31 and 35 days, right? So you have to count 35 days, and then when you count, you should count from the first day of your period and not the last day of your period. So if your period started on the Monday the 1st, and then it continued until the 4th or the 5th, you should start counting from the 1st. So you count 35 days, and then probably 2 days before you need to carry it in your handbag. So in fact,
actually not 2 days. I personally believe in 30 days.
Yes,
it always needs to be in your handbag.
So then if you have the medium, the normal cycle is about 28 days, and then there's people who have a short cycle. So, but they are a very small percent, less than 5% of the population. So those are the ones who menstruate, after 21 days. Right? So that's the first mistake you need to, something. So always carry the sanitary, carry the sanitary pad with you all the time. Then number 2, when you're going to buy the sanitary pad, the things that you need to make sure that it has. So one of the main fears of any woman or any girl when she's menstruating is leakage. That's the number 1 fear.
Definitely.
That is why people wear black. They don't want to,
maxi dresses.
Yes. At that time of the month, fashion goes out of the window. So because you're scared of leakage. So you need to make sure you have a pad that has absorbs well. So like an always pad, it has something called gel. Now the gel absorbs the liquid and turns it into gel. So even if you press the pad, even when you put like water, nothing's going to come out. So even when you sat the way we are sitting and putting pressure, nothing's going to come out. So you have to make sure your pad absorbs well.
And you know the thing about that concept? We've all seen the ads on TV, so we are familiar with that concept.
Yes.
And even as you're talking about it, I'm sure people are saying, oh, just like the TV ad.
Yes, so at least it needs to do that. So you shouldn't be scared. So whether you stand up or whether you're going for sports or the gym, you can do that when you're on your periods, because that's the time of the month when people really, they have bad moods, they're not as social. So we want to make sure that at that time of the month, you can go on with your day as normal. Then the other thing, it needs to fit well. You don't want it to drop. I think that could be every woman's fear. If you just, you're walking and then the pad drops. So it needs to have something that sticks so that it can stick onto your panty very well. And then for always, we even have wings. Yeah, so I remember, a couple of years ago, there was just the pad without wings. And then we are the ones who started the first pad with the wings. So the wings come and it's able to fit and you can jump up and, do everything. And that, you will be fine. So the other thing is in terms of changing. So you need to, different people have different flows. So it's something we can't tell you how often to change, but you need to watch how your flow is, and then you need to change it as often as possible. In terms of hygiene, we tell the girls, when you're on your periods, that's when your hygiene should be really up, so that you don't have any odors.
What about that on a pad that is a sanitary towel that is very absorbent? There are those women who will say, oh, this one works, like it's very absorbent, so I don't have to change it.
Yes, you still need to change it. Yeah, because of hygiene purposes. So the younger you are, your flow is very, it's very limited. But then the older you get, your flow is much more. So you definitely need to change your pad so that you can avoid the odors.
But the rule of thumb is every 4 to 6 hours.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what are some of the common mistakes that we make? Like, just top of my head, how many women wash their hands before they use the sanitary towel?
I don't have statistics, but I know generally 9 out of 10 people don't wash after the toilet. So whether it was on their period or not, 9 out of 10 do not wash their hands. So they just go in and they finish and they're out there. So that's one of the things that you find them not doing. And in fact, when we have the nurses educating the girls, they actually you shouldn't even touch the top of the pad. And so you find like an always pad has a wrapping which you can use to dispose. So when you're putting, you shouldn't even touch
because you don't know where your hands have been, and you can actually get bacteria on the sanitary towel.
Yes, so the sanitary pad is there, so you don't have to touch it when you're putting, either when it's clean or even when it's already soiled. Then the other thing that people do is in terms of disposal. Right, so we also educate girls about how to dispose of the pad. So once you're finished with the pad, you've taken it, you're done, you wrap it, and then you shouldn't put it in the flushing toilet. So there are bins like in the urban areas. However, like in the rural areas, there's big latrines, so you can now put it in the latrine and dispose of it.
Okay, and what about, earlier on you mentioned that depending on your cycle, you always have to have your emergency sanitary towel somewhere in your bag.
Yeah.
What about storage? Because you've seen places where you go, you'll find them in the washrooms, you'll find them stored in all manner of places. Does this affect the hygiene?
Now, because if you look at the always pad, first it's there's the packaging, and then it's already wrapped. So the wrapping is already good enough. So even if you were to put it in your handbag, for instance, that there'll be no issues because it's already wrapped and protected. So put it in your handbag or put it in a little toilet bag and then put it in your handbag. That's even better.
And then, as with all goods, checking the expiry date. How many of us do that? Do you do that?
Well, only for food and milk, Yeah. So yes, there's always an expiry date on the pad. So it's about 2 years from the date of production. So you need to look at what the production date. So there's a stamp on the pad that says when it was produced, and then so 2 years, and we say best. That's when it's gonna work at its best.
It's because it's your health. You don't want to use something that is way past its expiry date.
Yeah.
And it happens, And then the other thing would be, I know the market is now getting to be a bit flooded, so there are all these brands. And of course, the rule of thumb is you don't want to be the person who's being used as a guinea pig. Yeah, testing out all these different products because they're cheap.
Yes.
Because you do know sometimes when it comes to sanitary towels, especially when they're perfumed, they can actually affect the woman.
So in terms of, yes, the market has really, there's more than 15 brands today, whereas a few years ago there was just like about 5 brands in the market. So you find that there's a lot of choice. However, you need to check, as we said, why is that pad that amount of money, and is it going to offer me the protection that I need, the comfort that I need, the assurance that I need. So you find that there's some pads that you may use where you will need to use much more. So if it's in terms of how often you need to change it, you find after 2 hours you need to change it because it's already soiled and it's actually going to leak. So you need to make sure that your pad doesn't do that. So for today, if you go to the market, always is first and foremost the market leader, but it also, in terms of performance, it's actually one that performs the best across.
And you have a wonderful campaign that you've actually just started, and I know that it's been running for quite a while as well.
Yes.
About ensuring that every woman has access to the sanitary towel. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yes. So we actually didn't just start it. So in 2005, when the research was
years.
Yes. So when the research was done by Fawe, so we started the program now in 2006. So we have been supporting girls, and one of the things that is special about our program is that we use and give to select girls, and then we give them throughout the term. So instead of just coming like just like a one-hit wonder, and then we give you like two packets and then we leave you, we don't do that. So we actually want to give you pads for the 2 years. So when you're in class 7 and when you're in class 8. Why? Because we want you to stay in school, to be able to concentrate better, so that when you sit for your KCP exams, you don't have an excuse. You already have a pad. So we give them pads. The other thing we do is we provide them with education. Now, the Fawe research that I talk about says that the education is actually even more important than the pads, meaning that when the girl is mentally prepared, she knows that at a certain time when I'm 11 or 12 or 13, my body is going to go through these changes. I'm going to get breasts, my hips, and then I'll start menstruation. So when she gets the menstruation, the day she sees the blood, she's not shocked, because she was already taught and she knows what to do. So that's one of the things we do. We will have the education, and then so we give you the education, we give you the pads, and then the other thing we do is we give you underwear, because we know as well that some of these girls don't have access to underwear. So you really are not able to use a pad if you do not have underwear. So we have done this program from 2006 using different partners. So we started with the Girl Child Network, and then we actually partnered with the Ministry of Education. So, and they were such a helpful partner, and today the ministry is giving out pads to different girls across the country. And then now we have partnered with an NGO called HEART. So cumulatively we will reach about we've reached about 95,000 girls. But this is repeat. So that's why the number looks small, because we give them consistently for 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, and still on that, how can I and how can anyone who's watching be part of this movement?
All right. So one of the things we like to say is a lot of people are now providing maybe bursaries, you're educating maybe your sibling or your cousin or somebody. So we want to tell you, when you're thinking about providing them with the textbooks and the education, you need to also give them money to buy sanitary pads. That's something that is essential. The other thing is, we want to tell the moms, maybe the aunties, the grandmas, you need to talk to the young girls about menstruation. This is something that they're going to go through. It's a life change. It's a beautiful thing. But how you teach them at the point is really important. So you need to teach them to embrace the womanhood, because this is a lovely time in your life. So you need to embrace it. So we want them to talk about it. We want media, everybody, let's talk about this thing. It's a normal process. So if we talk about it, so girls are not going to be shy. They won't feel ostracized in the communities when they're doing this. And the other thing is participate and buy sanitary pads. We have a lot of people from our distributor who come, like different companies and banks coming to buy sanitary pads from a wholesale, so that they can get a better price. So we ask them to just contact us, and we can give them a good price for it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Irene. Very enlightening discussion right there. Plus, I think a lot of people have actually, a bulb has clicked in their heads.
I hope so.
Do I use my sanitary towels correctly? Do you adhere to the hygiene rules? Do you wash your hands? And I do hope that you've learned something. And as she said, we can all be part of this wonderful movement. You can help get a sanitary towel to a child, not via her campaign, even from where you are. There are a lot of young women, there are a lot of young girls who don't have access to sanitary towels, and the change starts with you and me.